The eighth tale, the shepherd boy, the lazy son. Two shepherds who were father and son worked together in the fields. The father looked after the sheep from morning till night, constantly patrolling the pasture and looking out for wolves. The son, however, spent every day at leisure, staring into the distance and not lifting a finger to help his father. One day the father turned to his son and said with regret, "I am getting old, and shall soon be retiring. Though you are my only son, it has become clear to me that you have no enthusiasm for shepherding. I am starting to think that I should be better entrusting my flock to someone else." The son was quite shocked, for the flock was his only livelihood, and resolved to start assisting his father in the fields, chasing sheep, tending the grass, and so on. Alas, he soon grew tired of such tasks. At a loss as to what to do, the son supposed he should pay a visit to Old Father Oak, an ancient tree in the deep dark wood, possessed of infinite wisdom on all matters. Okay, that might be the same person that we were talking to that gave us our first spells and a wizarding wand? No, we still had our original wand. I don't think he gave us a better one. I think he told us where to get a better one. I think that's how that went. "Oh, Old Father Oak, is there not some manner of fruit that I can swallow to excite my enthusiasm?" the son asked in vexation. "I am afraid that such things do not exist," replied Old Father Oak. "There is, however, a fountain hidden deep within a nearby forest. Drinking of its water provides a goodly dose of energy." "That must be the fountain that we just restored." The fountain. The son traveled in the direction indicated by Old Father Oak until he came to the fountain and tested its cool surface with his hand. "I shall take some of this water home with me," he thought, before realizing that he had no vessel in which to carry it. "Alas, I must return home empty-handed," he lamented. Yeah, I was just about to say before reading the next sentence that why don't you just drink directly from the stream or the fountain? The son was about to go back to fetch a jug when he decided to sample a mouthful of the fountain's water. Sure enough, he immediately felt the great surge of energy that Old Father Oak had predicted and used his axe to chop down a nearby tree, carving it into a pitcher that was almost as big as himself. Once the pitcher was finished, the son filled it with water from the fountain and made for home. The vessel was very heavy, and the journey was a long one. He nearly gave up on several occasions, but every time he felt like abandoning his journey, he would stop by the wayside to take another gulp of water from the pitcher, and eventually he arrived back home. Let me guess, the pitcher's going to be empty by the time he gets home. "I have water enough here to last a lifetime," the son thought with a sigh of relief. He was very weary, and he fell into bed to sleep soundly till morning. Or not? Is that it? Oh no, it keeps going. The pitcher. The son awoke from his slumber and resolved to take another drink of water from the pitcher. "Oh, how full of life I am," he exclaimed happily, and set about his duties at double the usual speed. As he did so, he resolved that no one else must be allowed to drink the precious water in the pitcher. In the days that followed, the son spent much of his time ensuring that no one went near his pitcher, yet he took care to attend to his chores while he did so, knowing that his father would otherwise be angry. Whenever a villager approached the pitcher for a drink of water, the son would interrupt his own labors and offer a cup of different water, thus preventing any of the water in his pitcher from going to waste. He was also reluctant to waste the water from the fountain on himself, and so worked hard every day without touching it. Then one very hot day, after the son had been hard at work in the fields, he realized that a terrible thing had happened. The water had evaporated in the searing heat of the sun. When the son realized that the water upon which his future depended had disappeared, he was overcome with despair and collapsed upon the grass. The sight of the son lying prone excited the villagers' concern, and they rushed to see if he was all right, for the son had gained reputation in the village for being kind and hard-working, on account of all the cups of water he was wont to provide thirsty villagers. Some of the villagers gave the son a drink of water as he lay there, and he was amazed at how delicious it tasted. It was the freshest, cleanest water he'd ever drank, and what's more, it gave him the same surge of energy that the water from the fountain had done. His father stood next to him and said kindly, "No water on earth can compare to the first water you drink after sweating all day. Why, I should think it is a fair sight better than the water from that fountain." For the father knew that his son had visited the fountain. The son rose to his feet and smiled back at his father. "You are right, father. It truly is better by far. Hard toil brings its own rewards." I like that story. Did I only read the first page of the Squirrels in the Bramble, though? Or did I end up reading the whole thing? I feel like I only ended up reading the first page and never actually read the whole thing. So I'm going to do it again. The Squirrels and the Bramble, protectors of the forest. Once upon a time, the whole world was lush and green and covered in countless forests. In the mild days of spring, children would play in their clearings, making necklaces from the wild flowers, while in summer they would shelter from the sun under their ancient trees. And in autumn, of course, they would pick and eat their juicy fruits. Indeed, forests have always been important to youngsters, being carefree places in which to play with gay abandon. But what do you know of the forest guardians? Every forest has one. They are believed to be godlike creatures that protect the woods they inhabit, as well as the creatures that dwell within. But how do these guardians come into existence? No human knows for certain, of course, but it is believed that they are somehow selected from amongst the creatures that live in the forest. Naturally, since the guardian is responsible for protecting all the forest's inhabitants, the biggest, strongest creature in the forest is usually the one selected. There has, however, been one notable exception, as related in this well-known fable. A proclamation from the deities of the forest. A forest, luxuriant with leaves, was home to a gently flowing river and a spring that produced fresh water, and all the beasts lived there in amity, from tiny insects to creatures as big as 2 men. One day, the deities of the forest made a proclamation. The time has come for you to choose your guardian. For the forest did not have a guardian at the time. As soon as the message was received, a controversy prevailed among the beasts of the forest, which each one claiming that he would make the best guardian. These sharp fangs will frighten away any enemy, growled the black wolf. These huge claws will shred impostors to pieces, roared the gray bear. And so it continued, with every large forest animal boasting his own case, from the stag with his great antlers to the white catfish who dwelled in the spring. The forest's smaller inhabitants, those who had no chance of winning any test of strength, could but watch this assembly of the beasts in silence. The bickering continued for several nights until one day a golden haze descended upon the forest, bringing with it an aroma so sweet that the beasts soon forgot about choosing a guardian and simply spent the day in a contented daze, staring at the new golden coloring of the trees around them. The very next day, however, crimson saplings sprouted from some of the trees, and quickly grew into a large tangle of red bramble, for the golden haze the beasts had so enjoyed was in fact a cloud of evil-disposed spores. By the time any of them noticed, however, the bramble had covered the entire forest. The bramble strangled tree after tree, causing them to wither and die. It seemed only a matter of time before the entire forest would be quite devoid of life. Thus, the wise owl said, "Somewhere in this forest is the tree in which the spores first took root. That tree is the source of this terrible bramble. Cut off its source and the entire thicket will wilt." Okay, interesting. Desperate to save their forest, the black wolf and the gray bear resolved to find the tree that the wise owl had mentioned. However, the bramble had grown so thick and so dense that their great bodies simply would not pass through it. It was time for the smaller forest creatures to come to the fore, the ones who abstained, while the other beasts had bickered and boasted about who was strongest. And so the molted snake slithered through the bramble, moving deep into the forest in search of the tree where first the spores took root. "Alas, the bramble wraps the tree completely," hissed the snake. "We shall need to cut through it somehow, but I have neither claws nor teeth, only this forked tongue." Upon hearing the molted snake's report, the blue woodpecker leapt into action. "I shall peck through the bramble in no time," he chirped with confidence. But as he neared the tree which the molted snake had described, or the motlid? I've been saying that wrong the whole time. Motlid had described, the bramble became too thick and he was quite unable to spread his wings, let alone fly close enough to peck at the bramble, and thus he went back dejected. That was when the first mice and the squirrels rendered their assistance. "These sturdy front teeth of ours shall gnaw through the bramble," squeaked the field mice. "But the bramble goes all the way to the top of the tree," observed the squirrels. "Can you truly climb so high?" The field mice had to concede that they could not, and so it was the squirrels who set off to cut through the bramble that surrounded the tree that had been the first to succumb. Aw, there's a cute little illustration of them biting it. That's adorable. The squirrels soon reached the tree and scaled it with ease. In no time at all, they were nibbling at the bramble and making light work of cutting through it. No sooner had they begun to chew their way through the bramble than large parts of the thicket that covered the forest fell away and withered, and so the squirrels decided to continue nibbling until the tree was completely free of the bramble. Alas, the bramble contained poison spores, and the squirrels who swallowed them soon felt the effects and fell lifeless to the forest floor. And yet this did not deter the other brave squirrels who had resolved to rid the tree of the bramble and save the forest at any cost, and each of them continued to chew. The moment the last of the bramble was cut and the entire tangle withered away... What? The moment the last of the bramble was cut and the entire tangle withered away, the last remaining squirrel fell from the tree, dashing its head upon the ground. The squirrels had saved the forest. When the black wolf and the gray bear were finally able to wade through the dead bramble, they came across the bodies of the dead squirrels and let out terrifying cries. The Guardian. As the animals' cries rang out, the squirrels' souls floated from their bodies as pure orbs of light. The black wolf and the gray bear watched in amazement as the orbs floated into a hollow in the tree, bringing it back to life. The deities of the forest had spoken. The squirrels were the forest's true guardians. Though they were among the smallest and weakest of the beasts, their courage was greater than all of the largest creatures. Size has no bearing on a creature's nature. Or, size has no bearing on a creature's stature. Aw, I like these little lessons. They're so cute and, so wholesome and nice.